This is going to be my final presentation of the University of Minnesota Marijuana Research Study. And that's because we're going to cover the final test, which is the Iowa Gambling Task. Alright. Now, if you'll recall in the Iowa Gambling Task, your goal was to start picking cards out of the winning decks and avoid picking cards out of the losing decks. Well, the control group, it didn't take them very long to figure out which decks were winning and which decks were losing, so they started picking cards out of the decks. But the marijuana people, that was a different story. They kept picking cards out of the losing decks. Matter of fact, they became quite risky as they tried to do it. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, I wouldn't want these people being my investment brokers. I don't want these people being my bank tellers, my loan officers, or my retirement planners. I wouldn't want that. Okay? I wouldn't want these people anywhere near the stock market. On the other hand, because they are such risk takers, they wouldn't think twice about skydiving, bungee jumping, driving race cars. They'd be perfect for stuff like that. Because they'd be willing to do it. When it comes to playing sports, these would be perfect people. Having them run a triathlon, that'd be great. They could do that. See what I mean? And they'd make perfect lifeguards. Because after all, if you needed somebody rescued, they would never think twice about jumping in the water and rescuing somebody. They may not have very good concentration things up here, but I guarantee you they would not think twice about jumping in the water and rescuing somebody, if that's what they had to do. So it does have its pros and cons. See what I mean? When it comes to jobs requiring a lot of safety, these are not the kind of people you'd want in those type of jobs. You wouldn't want them being a part of a construction crew, and you certainly would not want them being like the people... You've seen this TV program called Axemen? You wouldn't want them on something like that. They're too big risk takers. You certainly would not want these people running a submarine. That's not what you'd want. So if safety is a priority, you don't want these people anywhere near that type of job. But if you need somebody that's going to be a real risk taker, like how that one tightrope, you had that tightrope walker, okay, that went across, it wasn't quite the Grand Canyon, but it was close. That's the kind of person you'd want out there. Because he wouldn't think twice of walking that tightrope. See what I mean? Shit, if you're having a surfboard competition, this would be the kind of person that would just jump right out there and surf, sharks or not. Now the thing is, I would not want these people to be boat captains, because they would not think twice of going into a storm. And that would be bad. So when safety's involved, you definitely don't want these people. But if you need a real risk taker like Evel Knievel, these would be great understudies for Evel Knievel. They really would. So it depends on what type of job you want them to do as to whether you bring them in or not. So there are your pros and cons of those who use marijuana. Now let me conclude this by saying this. I have never had any problem with medical marijuana. None whatsoever. If they need it for a medical reason, that's fine. I just don't want these people operating heavy machinery. Now, if they're in a salvage yard, that's not a big deal. Because nobody, if you're dumb enough to walk around a salvage yard without minding the big heavy machinery, yeah. That's not what we're talking about here. So a salvage yard is not the big deal. But when you're having these people constructing buildings, or say a tornado devastates an entire town, and they bring in these special crews to clean up the mess, you wouldn't want these type of people cleaning up the mess. They wouldn't think of safety first. You definitely don't want these people being your electricians. They would probably get fried on the power lines. That's not what you want. See what I mean? So like I say, medical marijuana is not the issue here. The issue is, can everybody have marijuana? And the answer is no. Because I don't want my neighbor driving a car while stoned. And now you can see why. And do you really want somebody who is stoned on marijuana to harvest crops for a farmer? Those farmers have accidents with those heavy pieces of machinery. Think of how amplified that would be if those farmers were using marijuana on a regular basis. No, I wouldn't want that. So you see, there's a great big difference between medical marijuana and regular marijuana. And certainly, I would not want marijuana users to work in factories. And for very obvious reasons. Okay. So, medical marijuana is okay, but it's not for everybody. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.